Hello and welcome. Hopefully you are watching this from the comfort of your own home while you're self-quarantining yourself from the coronavirus. It's been a rough couple of weeks here in New York, as I'm sure it has been for the rest of the country and in fact the rest of the world. If you're at home self-quarantining, you're doing the absolute best you can do. If not, you're a first responder or working in the medical field, in which case I salute you, because I have family that works in the medical field and they are a shadow of their former self with how exhausted and stressed they are. Work has been insane. So thank you very much for doing your part. Everyone else, enjoy the video. Big thanks goes out to Patreon supporter Sparks, who, if you're not familiar with Sparks, he had sent his Gen 2E Razer HD 1-6 for review a couple weeks ago. And when that video concluded, I sent it back to him. He was like, hey, I have a Trijicon MRO that I have laying around that if you want you can review. I said, sure, why would I say no to that? So without further ado, here it is. But be forewarned, it's naked. It's naked because it doesn't have a box. He didn't have a box for it. Oh well, I'm doing an unboxing video that doesn't have a box for a scope. Big deal. Nevertheless, Sparks, thank you very much for sending this into review. Funny story, actually. About a month or so ago, I was looking at picking one of these up because I thought it would be really cool to have. I really like Trijicon products, or at least their build quality and their reputation. And I wanted to get one of these to throw on my Ruger PCC because I felt that it would be awesome for the style of shooting that I use that rifle for. So he saved me $400 on giving it a shot. And I'm kind of glad about that, but I'll touch on that more later, if not on the actual review. I have been playing with this for the last week or so, and I gotta say, it's really, really nice. It's, at least as far as the build quality goes. Typical Trijicon. It's got this rubberized coating on the outside that looks really, really good. It's got a nice matte finish to it, so it's not very reflective, even though the windage and elevation shrouds are a little bit glossy. But it all pales in comparison to this very bright red, highly reflective front lens coating that they put on this. Very similar to the Romeo 5 that I had reviewed, and I had found that during the twilight hours especially, it would reflect back through the back of the optic and you'd be able to pick it up. So I wonder if this is going to do something similar to that effect. One thing when I was first looking at these, I was very curious to see if I'd be able to notice how much larger or rather how much smaller the rear is to the front. If you could see, it's a huge difference. I think they call this a 24mm, but I could be wrong. I'll double check. But I always thought that it would look goofy when you're looking through it because of just how much larger the front is to the rear, or at least the body would be huge and it would really throw off looking through the center of it. But as you can see here, it actually doesn't do a terrible job. I think it's mostly down to just the taper lining up with your eye when you're looking through it, that it all just sort of lines up in perspective. And as you can see, even on top, the large illumination knob isn't really that obtrusive. I prefer the fact they put it on top as opposed to on the side because it gives you better situational awareness when you're looking through it, even though this windage knob is protruding a fair amount. But a little minor gripe on that. While we're talking about the windage and elevation turrets, let's give them a quick spin to see how they sound. I'm wearing a lapel mic, so I don't know if it's going to pick up well, but just in case you want to know, I'm using a 1919 penny for this. Perfect good use of a 101-year-old penny. And positive clicks. These are half MOA adjustments at 100 yards, which is perfectly fine for a red dot. I don't know if you could hear that over the rain. It's pouring outside right now and I have the window cracked open. But perfectly fine, good detent, very solid clicks. They're not going to go anywhere. They're flush mount on top and on the side, so you don't have to worry about accidentally snagging them on anything. The illumination knob is very large and only has, I think it's 7 settings? Yeah. So we have off, night vision 1, night vision 2, 1, 2, and we'll see if we can even see these. I highly doubt it because 1 and 2, even to the naked eye in a darkened room, you can barely see. 3 is when it really starts to kick up, but even now you still can't really see it. 4, there we go. Go back to 3, nope. 4, 5, and then 6. I'm going to overlay this with a video looking through it right now. One thing I will say is the 1 and 2 are very, very dim. Again, you can barely tell that they're on, even in a darker room. 3 is pretty decent for a dark area. 4 gets pretty good. 5 is probably all you'd really need in a bright environment, but it can get washed out in certain surfaces. And 6 is very bright, but, and I'm going to touch more on this during my final review, 6 starbursts for me quite badly. I have an astigmatism, and I have to say I haven't really dealt with a red dot or a reflex or anything that's been as bad as this has been, and I'm not the only person to say that, but more on that later. This is a reflex, so there is a little bit of parallax, but so far it hasn't really been much of a bother for me. When I start to really use this and I run it through its paces, I'll get a better feel for it, but so far it seems okay. But overall, quality and fit and finish are stellar on this thing. It's really something else. It feels great, even with this mount, which is I want to ruin the pronunciation of this, a ScalarWorks mount. It is still very light, probably on par with the Romeo 5, maybe a little bit lighter. And this mount, even though it's not a review of the mount, this mount is really cool. I only wish that they had even just a slit in here for a coin to really make sure you get it nice and tight, but listen to it. This thing gets really tight, and what they do is they have this drilled out. I believe it goes to both sides, spring and bowl detents, so it locks into the knurling on the outside, and it's very, very positive. Cool stuff. But this does not come with the MRO typically. When you go to buy this, you can get different mounts from Trijicon themselves, or if you wanted to go just even Amazon. I don't know if they're all made by this company, but I know that you can buy a ton of different mounts for this thing, which is really, really cool. It makes it extremely versatile. And the overall size is not that big. First impressions are really high on this. I'm really looking forward to running it and using it and just seeing how well it works. I'm sure it's going to be perfectly fine as far as adjusting the windage and elevation and it holding 0. I'm sure the illumination is going to be perfectly fine. There's not much to really go wrong with this thing other than battery life, and well, that's really it. So far, first impressions are really high. I'm looking forward to running this. Sparks, thank you very much for sending this over for review. Everyone watching, stay safe out there. I don't know when I'm going to be able to get any of my real conclusion videos up and running, all my first person reviews, only because a lot of the places that I film at are closed. So I have actually a bunch of different scopes that I have that I want to start getting cracking on with reviews. So I'm probably going to be doing a lot of unboxing videos and maybe some quick reviews on some mounting systems, some rings and whatnot. So it's going to be a boring couple of weeks, but we're going to make the most of it together. Thank you very much for watching. Stay safe out there.